Welcome back to the shop, guys. It's my privilege to have you here today. Today we're going to be working on something new. As you can tell by the title of the video, we are in episode 1 of rebuilding, I should say, the Tumulisa. Now, years ago, I built a Tumulisa from Aerodrome RC plans and balsa wood kit. Now, today we're going to take those same plans and we're going to put a little twist on it. We're going to do it in a more modern medium. We're going to do it all out of foam board. And we're going to do it like quick and dirty. We're not going to go details. We're not going to do anything. We're going to use hot glue, all the standard flight test materials. We're not going to use anything other than that. Let's get started on the very first part of the airplane. Before we get into the airplane and all the building stuff, why am I doing this? Now, that's a great question. And to answer it, it's kind of a complex one, but the bottom line is I'm tired of people griping about not having free plans anymore from flight test. So yes, I did buy this airplane years ago, but the point is I want to show you guys how to build an airplane, a foam board airplane from balsa plans. It's really not that hard. You just have to have a little bit of forethought and understand where hard points are. So as we go through this build, be thinking in your mind how you can apply this to balsa plants. Why balsa plants? Well, we've been building airplanes out of balsa for about 100 years, okay? There are plenty of sport models, scale models, fun scale, sport scale, pattern, all sorts of models out there. And there are lots of free ones too. They're public domain. There's no copyright issue at all. And all you have to do, this doesn't have to be a production kind of thing. Keep in mind that the flight test plans are made for production. These airplanes, they're not, okay? The airplanes that I am going to show you how to build are one-off, something special, okay? You build it once. If you want to build it again, you print the plans again, all right? So bear with me here, guys. I want to take you along this ride because it's really not reinventing any sort of wheel or making anything really difficult. Let's get started. All right, so as you can see, I've got a couple of plans printed out. There's multiple sheets of this, but we're going to start with this. So this was part of the scan of the airplane, and I just printed out this part onto regular paper. Now the reason I did this is because I'm going to, on the main part of the plans anyway, I'm going to need that for the fuselage side. So this was easy to print out in a smaller piece. I could even tile it onto 2 pieces if I wanted, but it fit onto one single sheet of paper just fine. From there, I figured out how I wanted to do my interplane struts. So these are the struts that go from the bottom wing to the top wing. And when I did this, I cut out the airfoil part at the top, but then I also factored in the 4.5 millimeters of the skin on the top and the 4.5 millimeters of skin on the bottom. So the idea here is to create a slot in the wings and push this in. Now, why? Okay, so if you look a little bit closer here, so this line is normally the line of the profile, but I wanted to beef this up because I'm going to take barbecue skewers and I'm going to push it through here. How am I going to do that? Great question. Let me show you. So the way I did it, see, I did it already, is I heated up the very tip of a yard flag. Okay, this is a standard yard flag, standard flame source, and heated up the tip of it. See, it's all dirty and gross. And I used that heat on the metal to go about halfway through, flipped it around, went halfway through. Because this is a pretty long run. To do it all in one shot, I'd probably fail. And I did 4 just fine that way, met in the middle, and then poked a bamboo skewer through, and that's it. Now, I did take little cutters and snip off the ends. So that is how I did the interplane struts. So now I have little arrows marking what's top, what's not top, I should say. That way, when I'm going to assemble, I don't have to think about it anymore. Let's move on to the next part. Alrighty, so this is the Cabane strut. Really, this is a series of struts that would be made individually. There would be one on each side, and so essentially two here, and two here. And this triangulates the mounting of the top wing so that it sort of helps distribute the load between these 2 points that would normally be in the fuselage. Again, you can sort of see how the interplane struts would pass through here in the profile. So again, I did the same thing. Got another printout off of my printer, cut this out how I wanted to, and you can see how the profile isn't exactly right. I had to give a little bit more meat in places to make this all one shape, but it covers the profile mostly of what I need to do. And then again, put some bamboo skewers through this. So there's one bamboo skewer that butts up against this one, and then there's this diagonal. You can see two coming out here, and then one that comes up here. These are a bit tighter, had to be a little bit more careful, but got two of them done, and we're time to move on to the next part. All right, so the top wing. We moved on to the top wing. It's very unusual for this particular subject. The wing tip is actually elliptical. It is not squared, it is not round. It's actually one of the most interesting things about this airplane, other than it has a phenomenal safety record. Yeah, the stall characteristics on this plane are super kind of weird because number one, it's a biplane and it's got these elliptical wingtips. So it's one of those things that adds character to this airplane and why I find it interesting, because the Swedes just did things different. Moving on, we'll get more into this later. We've got the profile here that's pretty straightforward. Now, the way that I worked this out, there are no ailerons on the top wing. Okay, the ailerons are only on the bottom wing, so we'll move into that later. So we have two things we really need to sort out: a wing, the mounting, and really the spar. Okay, so obviously we have a top and a bottom. That's kind of a given. Where do we decide where we want the undercamber tip to be for the flight test style? Well, I just sort of guesstimated, but really what I did was I held a straight edge right up to the edge of this and figured out where it stopped, because that's really where it's going to matter here on the tip, where I obviously I can't complete the fold over. So it's roughly between R3 and R4. So that's where I decided to extend this out. So then how far do I extend it out? Well, you can approximate these things. There's a lot of fudge factor. That's the cool thing about the flight test designs, is there's a lot of fudge factor behind these. And really what I did was I kind of cheated and I just used this reference line. And so I just went all the way back here and extended this out kind of a way, and then rounded out. Okay, so then I figured out, okay, so these are my mounting points. So this is where the Cabane struts mount, and this is where the interplane struts mount. And so using the points, the mounting points as references, that's where I came up with this shape here, because obviously they're in these circles would be the two mounting points. So that is how I did that. And then how do we determine how thick the airfoil is going to be? So again, using the airfoil templates, this is L0 for the lower wing. It's the same airfoil on the top and the bottom, just a little bit shorter because there are ailerons on the bottom. But this is L1. But again, it's the same shape, the same airfoil. So I trimmed it down, and I thought, well, that doesn't really make sense. I'm not going to do ribs all the way along here to help keep the shape. I'll just peel the paper off the inside and make a nice rounded shape. I'm not going to do any of the boxy stuff because I hate those, number one. It takes a lot away from the design, in my opinion. And so with this, I just measured the height here, and this is with a slice taken off the bottom and a slice taken off the top, 4.5 millimeters for those who don't know the thickness of foam board. And with that, I just made a 2-width spar and positioned it right behind where the normal spar would be. It's an easy enough reference line to just mark there. I decided not to try to center it or anything. I was like, this is way too complicated, not to mention the thickest portion was just after the spar anyway, so it's fine. With that, we're going to move along and I'll show you what the wing looks like. Ta-da! All right, so we've got 2 wing halves, and just like I said, you know, we're looking at approximating things here, right? So looking at this profile based off of the curvature down, it's not exactly where it should meet up, but it's close enough. We've got a nice straight spar, nice curvature on the wing tip, a little bit here, not too much to take away too much from the original flying characteristics. We've got our slots ready to receive. Come over here. So again, I didn't want to break up the spar at the middle portion of the wing, so I decided to notch this. And that fits in there. It's hard with one hand, bear with me. All right. And then, see, that was the Cabane strut. So these are the Interplane struts. And that just plugs in right like that. Easy enough. All right, so that's what we got for this so far, right? Really easy flight test style, just using the Balsa plans, making smart decisions that we have learned from building Balsa models, and taking what we know, again, the very bare bone basics of building with foam board. You've got the thickness of the foam board, again, 4.5 millimeters, and you need to factor that into a couple places, like where we did the cutouts for the Interplane struts and the Cabane struts, as well as the airfoil, to figure out how thick our spar needed to be. I'm not overbuilding this. This is designed to be light. Again, this is probably going to end up being tail heavy, just because it's a World War I model, and that's sort of the life you live when you build World War I models. Anyway, I'm having fun. I'm knocking this out real quick. It's one of those instant gratification projects, as they say. Real quick, I got to go over the power system with you guys, and then we'll be done for the day. All right, so you guys, you know this logo. This is Master Air Screw. Seriously, one of the oldest players in the game. They make phenomenal props that are basically indestructible. I've had very few of them break, and I've had them like chip and stuff, and they still fly great. So they reached out to me and they said, hey, we want to sponsor a prop or two for your next project. And I said, hey, great. I'd love to use this new Scimitar series that I've never used before. I want to see how it runs. I want to see how it works. So they were nice enough to send this to me. This is a 13.6 Scimitar blade. It fits the style of World War I that we're going after. We are using a leftover motor from a crashed airplane. Now, for those who know, this is the motor out of a Fly Zone de Havilland Beaver. Yes, the infamous Fly Zone de Havilland Beaver. Everybody loved this airplane. A guy in my club actually had 2 of them, maybe even 3 of them. Just flew the snot out of them, even flew them into the corn. And just really, really nice flying airplanes. And this is a leftover from one of my club members' crashes. I have a prop collet, and the way that the mount is for the plans, I'm just going to try to stick straight to the plans for Aerodrome RC. I'm not going to try to change it and make anything overly fancy or complicated. Again, simple. I am going to be varying myself a little bit because I'm not going to use a power pod. I just don't think it will work well with this. Number one, because I need to get the weight as far forward as possible. The only way to really do that is mount the battery vertical, and that's going to get in the way of having a power pod push in. So the battery, I need that weight, all the weight, as far forward as possible. All right, so at this point in the game, I gotta tell you guys that I've been going to Flight Fest for years. You guys know me. I love to go to Flight Fest, and there is a reason why I have built a quarter scale foamy Fokker D8 and now this to Melissa. The reason is that a bunch of us, we really felt that the World War I era models were underrepresented last year at Flight Fest. So we decided that we were going to do this sort of gaggle thing again. Last time we really had a big hit with World War I models was back when we did the Gotha gaggle. Speaking of the Gotha, it's right there. Yep, it's still in the shop and it's still keeping me company, but it was time. It was time that we do it because we only saw a handful of airplanes last year. So we've got Dan Sponholtz, we've got Ben Harbour, we've got Carl Leidick, we've got Jared, we've got Adrian, whole bunch of really great guys, staples to Flight Fest, and we're all doing really fun, just beautiful airplanes. Just loving it. Even the 13 Squadron guys are getting in on the fun. Jack and Steve, we love you. We're looking forward to seeing what you guys come up with too. So stay tuned for that. There's going to be a link in the description to the forum where you guys can check out the details on that and get in on the fun too. So until next time, guys, select your model, find your plans, and build your flying work of art.